Also, the Spurs are much more battle-tested.
Okay, Colin, let's talk about it.
I mean, in May, the Knicks played 2 close games. 2. And were far superior to both teams. We didn't know until this past weekend if the Spurs were even superior to the other team in the Western Conference Finals. So I like the Spurs, home court, have Wemby, battle-tested.
Okay, Colin. What do you mean when you say the word battle-tested, right? Battle-tested to me isn't just having some good tough playoff series, right? Battle tested to me means having some playoff scars, right? It meaning been under playoff pressure before. It meaning having expectations on you before and you just coming up just a little bit short, right? Battle tested to me means having to prove people wrong, proving doubters wrong, right? That's what I hear when I hear the word battle tested. Now, something else you said, right? You said you didn't know, or we didn't know, if the San Antonio Spurs was more battle tested than or better than the team that they were playing against in the Western Conference Finals, right? You're absolutely right, because that means that San Antonio was going through the battle, right? Just because New York wasn't facing many challenges in this particular playoff run, right, or this particular playoff series, or this particular this particular playoff run, doesn't mean they wasn't battle tested, right? There's a difference from being battle tested and going through the test, right? And that was the difference, right? The New York Knicks was battle tested, right? The San Antonio Spurs was going through the test. Let me show you what I'm talking about when I tell you the New York Knicks were more battle tested, right? You have Jalen Brunson, right? Played with Dallas. You know, he was a second fiddle to Luka. But he was already under pressure. He was scrutinized from a young age. When he first came to New York, we was talking about him maybe not being good enough to get a team to a championship, not let alone win one, right? He has big playoff moments. He carried playoff pressure prior to this series, prior to the NBA Finals, right? We have Mikal Bridges, right? Been to the finals with the Suns, right? He was a key piece to that Suns NBA run with Chris Paul and Devin Booker, right? You have Karl-Anthony Towns, right? We all know the story behind Karl-Anthony Towns. We was calling this man soft, right? We saw what happened with him and Jimmy, right? So we all was like, Karl-Anthony Towns, even myself, when Karl-Anthony Towns first left Minnesota, I was like, good for Minnesota, right? So I was even wrong on that take, right? OG Anunoby, he went to Toronto Raptors, right? That Toronto Raptors that made it to the NBA Finals and eventually won the NBA Finals. He was hurt. He got hurt prior to the NBA Finals, but he was part of that team that made it to the NBA Finals, right? Then you have Josh Hart, right? I'm a huge fan of Josh Hart, right? He went through those the Knicks playoff battles, right? So what are we talking about when we say battle tested, Colin? You have Robinson, who went through the Knicks playoff battles prior to winning this NBA Finals, right? You have McBride, right? Grew up in this New York Knicks time where he went through these playoff battles, right? We have Jordan Clarkson, another veteran, right? Jordan, another veteran, another leader, right? Another guy who can come off the bench and give you some excitement, some explosive plays, right? When things are maybe a little stagnant, right? So when I hear battle tested, I'm not just looking at one weekend, Colin. I'm not just looking at this playoff run, Colin. I'm looking at the scars. I'm looking at the pressure that some of these guys have already been under. I'm looking at some of the scrutinize that some of these guys have to hear about themselves. Right, Colin? I'm looking at the things that these guys have had to survive prior up until this point. Now, let's be clear here. This is no disrespect to the San Antonio Spurs. right? Because they're coming. They're going to be a problem, right? Wemby is special. Wemby got gifts that no man seen from a lot of other superstars, right? This team's future is bright, very bright, right? But having a bright future is not the same as being more battle tested. So maybe we need to be careful with the definitions and the words we're using to define some of these moments and some of these games, right? And some of these teams, right? So my point being, Colin, so maybe it's not that San Antonio is more battle tested than the New York Knicks. Maybe we're just so excited about what San Antonio can become that we're giving them credit for things they haven't earned yet, right? Maybe we're confusing potential with proof, right? Maybe we're confusing being tested in one run with being tested over time. But let's talk about it. And I'm out.